Welcome to Boundless B, the Hemophilia B podcast, the podcast standing with you from a family like yours, presented by the Coalition for Hemophilia B, and in partnership with Balancing Life's Issues. This episode is brought to you by Hemobiologics. Hemobiologics is a privately held biopharmaceutical company focused on the rarest bleeding disorders. They aspire to support patients living with these disorders, partner with a broader community that cares for them, and bring meaningful treatments and services to help better patients' daily lives. Today we're diving into a topic that's both challenging and incredibly important: what it's really like to transition into adulthood while managing a chronic condition like hemophilia B. For many young adults, this transition brings a complex mix of excitement, independence, and responsibility. But for those with hemophilia B, it's often accompanied by difficult lessons in self-management and sometimes painful consequences. For years, parents are the ones managing everything. They're ordering factor, handling insurance calls, scheduling checkups, and making sure infusions happen on time. But as these young adults step out on their own, many struggle with the realities of taking over this responsibility. They want to live life like their friends do, to experience the freedom of young adulthood without the constant reminders of their condition. This desire for independence can lead to missed infusions, ignored bleeds, and sometimes hospitalizations. It's a hard road, and one that many families struggle with, as parents try to give their children space to make their own choices, even if it means learning tough lessons along the way. So today you're going to hear 3 stories from members of the community who continue to help young adults and parents make this transition a success. First is Matt Berkdahl, a seasoned medical family therapist and patient advocate living with hemophilia B. And later you'll hear from 2 mothers, Nina Duggan and Jennifer Fraker, who have successfully guided their own children with hemophilia B to becoming adults that are thriving by instilling within them the independence, resilience, and most importantly, the checklists of to-dos that you need in order to navigate hemophilia B all on your own. Welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Hey, hello, Kai. It's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course, it's wonderful to have you. I just wanted to maybe kick this off by just telling our listeners about yourself, the work you do, your journey, your health struggles, and your connection to the hemophilia B community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Well, I'm a hemophilia patient myself, hemophilia B. I have the severe type. And of course, I had the genetics in my family history, so we kind of knew this was a possibility. And I have 2 younger brothers with hemophilia as well as also a few sisters that are symptomatic carriers and mild hemophilia. So between everybody, that's kind of our family history. So I've also had other kinds of medical issues, kidney issues resulting in kidney transplants, 2 of them. In addition to, I've had some cancer come up. That was a journey in and of itself, as well as a few other things. And so between everything, that's just kind of put me into a situation where I've really wanted to not just give back, but explore some of the solutions out there when it came to when people suffer and when patients struggle. What can be done? What are solutions behind that? And really, also on a mental health note, I am a mental health professional. I am a licensed therapist, and I have run my own private practice for a while now and have been employed full time in other areas. And so, between everything, I speak all over the place. I write like crazy. I'm just one of those guys that just kind of want to make a bit of a difference to the community. And so, not just this one, but also others that could be experiencing obviously the same sorts of things, whether that be insurance, whether that be advocacy. There's so much work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think your lived experience has helped you with the advocacy part. And, I think we're here today, to talk to young adults who are transitioning into adulthood. And we're also talking to parents who, have been maybe primary caretakers for many, many years. And now they're getting into a role of guidance and needing to let go. So I think maybe if we start with the young adults listening who are preparing to transition, I think for many, having their parents manage everything for them, to the date, ordering factor, coordinating with insurance, if you were talking about scheduling HTC checkups, ensuring infusions happen on time. I think the list can go on and on and on. So I guess as to the point as possible, what's your advice and what do you recommend young adults start doing to prepare to take on the long list of responsibilities themselves?
Well, those are excellent questions and excellent things. And honestly, it can scare really the pants off people when
Yeah.
you're getting to the point where, there's this whole social media thing and kind of some new lingo going around called adulting. And,
I've
but
heard that one.
especially, yeah, you probably heard that a few times. And oh man, I got to adult, all the things that they're talking about with insurance, all the things they're talking about with so many other areas. I would honestly just say, let's slow down a little. Let's check ourselves.
Hmm.
Because the thing is that while there are certainly challenges out there, why have we kind of lost the excitement of being able to explore new areas?
Hmm.
And when people leave high school, I'm going to be gone from my friends, or I'm going to college, or I'm starting a new job, everything's going to be different. Well, it might be different, but can it not be exciting and good? What can I do to actually feel like and bring back some of that magic?
I mean, as a young adult going into the world independently on their own, I think the tendency is to be amongst your peers and maybe live like peers do, which can sometimes, I think, in this community can possibly lead to missing an infusion, or maybe
Yes.
this bleed isn't that big of a deal. So I guess in terms of balancing that magic you're talking about, right? Of being an independent adult and exploring the world and being out there on your own. But, in the other hand, or on the other side is this really serious condition that you have to manage. What how should a young person navigate both of those things at the same time?
I talked about attitude as one.
Right.
Okay. Now, that doesn't come out of the blue. We remember our days of camp and we're learning how to infuse for the first time. That's kind of preparatory for what's to come. You're
Right.
learning these skills in order for you to be successful.
Yeah.
So, you know, being able to put yourselves and kind of ground yourself into what do I know right now and what do
Yeah.
I don't know? What
Yeah.
what what don't I know?
I like how
And
you called it a skill set, because I think that's well, I think when you view something that way, it removes the stigma of, oh man, I'm with my buddies right now and I have to go, have an infusion. You can instead reframe. Maybe we could talk about what it's like to reframe a situation into something positive, or I'm, utilizing your skills.
Kai, I'm so glad you went there because that's exactly where I was going. When we first know and understand that there is an issue, or if we first learn and understand that you might not have the knowledge so much, it's
Hmm.
okay to reframe this, if you will, into an opportunity as opposed to a curse.
Right.
The fact is that while there's this whole black and white sense of I don't want my parents involved, I totally want my parents involved.
Hmm.
Well, there's something that Stephen R. Covey used to talk about, and that is interdependence.
Hmm.
Okay, it doesn't mean we're independent, doesn't mean we're dependent, but there's always going to be a shade of gray in interdependence by being able to just say, look, I am independent, I'm doing these things. There's going to be questions that surface. We're going to have an interdependent relationship with our hematologist, hopefully, or our doctors,
Right.
or the insurance company. The fact is that if something's not going right, we have to know and have that skill set of being able to understand that you have a whole team of people to help answer some of those questions.
Right.
It's not just you. I wouldn't be here if it were just me.
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I
that's
love the
that's the
team
balance that I
mentality.
see. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that balance, yeah, that you're talking about, that skill set, but knowing that the team is always there. That foundation is your team of healthcare professionals, parents, friends, who's there to support you as you transition into adulthood. There are serious consequences to not taking that seriously. So I guess in terms of pragmatic skill sets, like
hmm
what kinds of things are we talking about that should be developed in the home that will help a young person as they transition on their own?
That's a good question because now you're talking to what we call a system. And this is how a system of a family, a system or a network of providers, we have these systems in place. We don't have to dumb things down. Youth, teens, young adults, they're so bright. They
Yeah, they are.
understand
They
this. We
do.
have to
Yeah.
understand that. We don't have to whisper these things or play it down. Honestly, I'm just going to say it this way. If people can understand the skill set of knowing that there always is going to be an answer
Mhm.
to their inquiry or to their fear, and the more that people can feel independent and more empowered to look for those solutions with the aid of family, with the aid of a treatment team. That's the thing is we are social beings. We cannot feel like we're just nestled into this place.
Right, right. Okay, so I'm starting to see this tool bag kind of fill up, right? All this information is so helpful to our listeners, the parents, young adults. I guess if you could encapsulate this into one piece of advice, maybe they could walk away with. Is that possible? Do you have that?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I think I, I do. And this is my opinion. Just get some education behind you, and then pivot right back to making your life and preparing and prepping for the things that are to come. You have wanted this for so long, and I'm hoping that people can enjoy what's to come because it's all good on the other side. It's just how we look at it.
Now that Matt has talked about what's required in our tool bag to navigate adulthood with hemophilia B, let's hear from the first of two mothers who have lived it firsthand. First up is Nina Duggan, mother of two children with hemophilia B who are now both married and living happy and successful lives, in part due to Nina's determination to teach her kids how to live their truth. This didn't come easy though, as Nina initially struggled taking on the emotions of her children's disappointments and failures.
The anxieties are not just from the bleed, but their experiences growing up. So my son, for instance, wasn't invited to a sleepover birthday party because the parents weren't comfortable with him being there overnight.
Devastating.
Very. My daughter went through when do I tell people when she started dating. So that was around the same time that was happening. She was an ice skater, which she ended up quitting, but she did get into swimming, which is great exercise for people with bleeding disorders. But she kept having shoulder bleeds, so she ended up quitting before her senior year in high school. And it broke my heart to watch that. And then my son got into skateboarding and
Well, these high impact
oh yeah.
sports they're getting into. Sounds like maybe parent tip number one is to really be careful managing your emotions
Yes.
with your kids.
Yes, definitely. If you show anxiety, they're going to feel it.
You know, obviously it's not like you weren't feeling anything. Like what kinds of things as a parent did you do to help alleviate some like the emotional mental challenges of navigating hemophilia B with your kids?
On my free time, I tried to have my nails done or go and have a massage or just
Right.
meet up with a girlfriend that I could vent to. So you need to have your own outlets to deal with things. And also becoming friends with other mothers dealing with the same types of things. I have a very close knit group of hemophilia mothers near me.
Yeah.
That will be my lifetime friends.
Right. And because we all know the importance of the community, being able to ask questions and shoot off, hey, have you ever experienced this? Like, because you're not alone, right? And I think a lot of what we're trying to do is we're talking about a really major transformation in a young person's life into adulthood. I'm sure your list is long of things you were in charge of while they were still under your care. So I guess talk to me about what that transition was like, because your kids are living rich, fulfilling lives in their 30s and 40s. And I think for a lot of parents, they can't imagine that time. So like, tell us about that transition. What did you do to kind of help prepare your kids for adult life?
First of all, learning how to, of course, order your factor and supplies. But understanding insurance was a big thing because that's what I did for a living. I worked at hospitals and medical groups.
So you had a big foot up in that concerning that, because I think for anybody it's complicated navigating.
Yes, it's very daunting. And so I made sure that they understood what they needed in their insurance plans firstly.
I think a lot of what we talked with Matt about is this idea of your team, right? Like just because you're leaving the home, like who's part of your team that's going to help you continue to navigate.
Right.
And part of that team are your healthcare professionals. They're
definitely
friends, siblings, and obviously your parent. So, and I think for a lot of parents, the danger can be, I don't want to be too overbearing. I don't want to be a helicopter parent. So how did you as a mother navigate balancing doing just enough, maybe too much going on. I
Oh,
don't know. Talk to us about it.
I can guarantee that.
Your son or daughter would probably feel a certain way about it too.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what I was thinking about when you said that. So my daughter went to a college 4.5 hours away. And actually, her first dorm room was in the building with the clinic in it on purpose.
Okay, so that's good. I was going to say 4.5 hours is a long drive in an emergency, so as close to the clinic as possible.
Yeah, we also researched to see if there was a hematologist around because it was an area in Southwest Virginia that's not filled with hematologists and there's no HTC there. So we found a doctor who was actually very excited because he said it's his first female patient with hemophilia.
Probably reassuring knowing that there was so much support on that level.
Yeah. And also her roommate was a nursing student, though she wasn't always successful with sticks, but that happened to be just coincidental.
Sure.
But the clinic there on campus was great because they agreed to accept her factor and refrigerate her factor and make sure that it was safe and sound.
Yeah, so it just sounds like a lot of groundwork and doing the work together before they're off to college, ordering factor, like understanding information, like you're like doing things together and just making it part of the family structure, dynamic conversation. Because I think for a lot of parents who struggle, they might go to a place of, well, I'm just going to do it all. I'll just do it all for the rest of their life. An honest conversation that your son or daughter might not want that from you at a certain point in their life. And so going from, caretaker to more of a guide, is that kind of maybe a good way to put it?
Yeah, maybe a little overbearing on either one of them even still, but it's kind of hard to get yourself in a headspace to be away from that because you'll always worry about them. But with my son, I had a totally different experience. When he went away, he was about an hour and 15 minutes away. He could actually still get his factor delivered here, and either we would take it to him or he would drive home to get it. We also connected with the disability office because he was on a 504 and IEP plan throughout the lower grades at school. We needed to make them aware of it. The other issue with his school, people are going to find this out, that schools are different. They were not willing to receive his factor in the clinic. So that was the reason for the factor still coming to our house. So these are all kind of a lot of little things that came up that people need to think through. You sometimes don't think in advance that these kind of things could happen.
To you, what is maybe part of the secret sauce that you were able to create to give your children just the best possible success going into adulthood?
Getting them involved helped them understand what they would need to do for themselves, just to help them become as independent as possible, preparing them for unexpected events and thinking through what kind of steps they would take to solve it themselves.
Finally, we'll hear from Jennifer Fraker, mother of many sons, as she puts it, who discovered that one of her sons had hemophilia B after a tonsillectomy resulted in a bleed that wouldn't stop. After further testing, they would go on to discover that not only did one son have hemophilia B, but one other did as well. Jen didn't stand by and let information just come to her. She went and got it. And those same values are what she has put into her two sons, who are now transitioning into adulthood successfully.
It was a huge shock, and it was terrifying because I didn't have any knowledge. We found out later my father had hemophilia, which means I'm a carrier, but I didn't know my father. So it was all just, we were so worried about, the long-term implications and what was going to happen to our children and, that wanting to put them in a bubble and just totally shocked us all. And I felt like for 3 or 4 months, my world just stopped.
And we can go back to that analogy you used of wanting to put your child in a bubble. What skill sets did you develop as a parent in that early part of the process that got you to get away from that notion that you need to be a helicopter parent? Or like, how did you balance discovery and education with letting your child still be a child?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that that's one that I struggled with for a while. Really, you kind of have to take in all the information, listen to the experts, know your child, and then kind of synthesize what all of that means for you and your family. But one of the big things that pushed me towards, okay, I need to let my kids just live, and stop being so afraid. And I say that while still saying, yes, we need to recognize there are possibilities of bleeds and injuries, right? But I sent my child to summer camp. He was going to, not a bleeder camp, just a traditional summer camp. When he came home, he was really mad at me because I had called the camp and just said, hey, he has hemophilia. If he's injured, this is what you have to do. Please call me. I think I must have done that with a frantic voice and a scared voice because the poor child all week, they were like, no, you have to be in a bottom bunk. No, you can't go hiking. No, you can't do this. And they made more of a bubble than I had ever dreamed of for him. I decided that the way I speak about it and the way I tell others had to change because I didn't want my children to walk around feeling different. What I decided was that I should then focus more on, if he is injured, how can I teach him to treat himself so that he can, factor if he's hurt? How can we make sure those around us could factor if he was hurt? So we sent him to the Tennessee hemophilia camp, and there he got his big stick. He learned to infuse. He came home and taught his little brother how to infuse, and then taught us all how to infuse. I needed to stop being so afraid.
Yeah, treat your kids like adults. Don't talk over them. The earlier you can do that, the more you're setting them up for success when they are no longer under your direct care and they're out there in the world thriving and sleeping on the top bunk and, all those things that you want your children to experience, a healthy life. When it comes to balancing your want or need to be a helicopter parent or be part of the process all the time, how has that transition been for yourself?
We always say in this house, we're not raising children, we're raising adults, right? The next big step after teaching him to take care of himself, physically, like learning how to factor and learning what it meant, was teaching him about how to order factor and how insurance works.
Right.
And even later, we talked about he wants to be self-employed. So we talked about, insurance in the market and what a person with hemophilia costs to a small business on an insurance policy.
Right.
He is his own small business owner. Of course, I still carry him for now on health insurance.
Right.
But at 20, he runs a business. He has 3 employees. They're all W-2'd employees. He pays all the taxes. He runs a little hot dog stand. Yeah, he runs a hot dog stand on campus. He's aware that insurance might be the largest hurdle he has to face. But I'm so happy that he's learned about this because he has 6 years to figure this out. It's not a kid going, I think I'll be self-employed and realizing that there are so many parts of that he doesn't understand. But I want your listeners to not hear, I should do something differently so my kid can be like her child. But there are definitely things we can all do. And because with both of my children, I've pushed them into independence. So, knowing how to negotiate those things and talk about those things is a skill we can all work on, even if you have a major introvert.
There are some young adults listening to this, and maybe an opportunity to speak to a young adult who's not your child. And on the flip of that, a young adult hearing from someone who's not their mother or parent about what it's like to have that reciprocal relationship as they step into adulthood.
Definitely. I think that if I had a chance to talk to all of the young adults out there about moving into an adulthood with hemophilia, understanding your medicine, knowing where it comes from, how it's paid for, how to get it, learning how to communicate with your hematologist as you transition into that adult hematology office, make sure you set up and make those connections and build those relationships. And just understanding that although the world seems scary, all of the adults out there are living it. And just because they're adults doesn't make them smarter than you or stronger than you or wiser than you. So you can do this too.
A big thank you to all of our guests today, Matt, Nina, and Jennifer, for their courage to share their stories in order to help others. Today's episode was brought to you by Hemobiologics. Hemobiologics is a privately held biopharmaceutical company focused on the rarest bleeding disorders. They aspire to support patients living with these disorders, partner with the broader community that cares for them, and bring meaningful treatments and services to help better patients' daily lives. This has been Boundless B, the Hemophilia B podcast, the podcast standing with you from a family like yours, presented by the Coalition for Hemophilia B, and in partnership with Balancing Life's Issues. For more information on upcoming CHB events, just go to www.hemob.org and click on Get Involved, then Upcoming Events. This episode of Boundless B, the Hemophilia B podcast, presented by the Coalition for Hemophilia B, is made possible in part by the support of CSL. We thank CSL for their continued commitment to the bleeding disorders community. This episode of Boundless B, the Hemophilia B podcast, presented by the Coalition for Hemophilia B, is made possible in part by the support of CSL. We thank CSL for their continued commitment to the bleeding disorders community.